Duke is sitting in front of a camera, getting ready to live stream on a site called Paprika TV. Daniel dropped by Duke's place because he heard Duke was going to host a music show. They set everything up for the stream and waited for viewers to join. A few people tuned in, but all they got were mean comments about their appearance, with some calling them pigs. During the entire stream, they only managed to collect 10 balloons, which are a form of currency that viewers can donate to streamers, later redeemable for real cash. Each balloon is worth 10 cents, but Paprika takes a hefty 40% cut when you cash out. Duke claims he's not really in it for the money, but he mentions that one of Paprika's top streamer is from their high school, Yui. A few days later, we see Yui chatting with Daniel about his performance at the festival and how well he did. Suddenly, Yui starts showering Daniel with gifts, including a designer wallet. Daniel recognizes it as the same pattern as his mom's wedding bag, which she only uses for special occasions. Feeling uncomfortable about receiving such an expensive gift, Daniel politely turns it down and wonders why Yui is being so generous all of a sudden. He starts to understand that she might actually like him, which feels strange for Daniel. He also realizes that this could be the first time he has a crush too. As the school day wraps up, Zoe approaches her friends to see if they want to go to karaoke. Two of the girls agree, but as soon as Yui mentions wanting to go shopping, the other two quickly change their minds and say they'd rather shop than sing. Zoe then pulls out a pouch and asks her friends if it looks cute and if she should buy it. Yui bluntly says it's kind of ugly and doesn't suit Zoe at all. The next day, the three girls are chatting and Zoe takes a closer look, only to see that Yui is carrying the very pouch she called ugly. Zoe tries to join in on their conversation, but they completely ignore her and keep talking. When Daniel walks into the room, the three girls suddenly perk up. Yui asks Daniel if he likes the pouch she bought, and he replies that it's nice. In that moment, Zoe realizes what's really going on and why her friends are acting distant. It's all to impress Daniel. Zach's friend, Du, pulls out a massive pack of cigarettes. Curious, Zach asks how Du can afford all his stuff and tells him that stealing is wrong. Du explains that he started streaming on Paprika to make some extra cash. He then invites Zach and the others to check out his broadcast. Jump scare warning ahead. In the next panel, we see Du shirtless, with hairy armpits and an egg cracked on his head. He spins around, thanking a viewer for sending him 100 balloons. Zach and the others are left in shock at the bizarre scene. Du lights a cigarette and counts his earnings from the stream, which total 400 balloons. He then hops onto Paprika to see if any cute girls are live streaming. To his surprise, he spots a familiar face. Zoe, who is streaming on Paprika now. She receives tons of donations and ends up with a whopping 10,000 balloons just for chatting with her viewers. Zoe wraps up her stream, expressing her gratitude to everyone who tuned in and contributed. She wonders if Daniel will start spending time with her now that she's making good money. The scene shifts to Yui, who is playfully making cute gestures at the camera to attract donations. The donations keep pouring in, and the chat is overflowing with balloon emojis. After a while, Yui finishes her stream and lights up a cigarette, grumbling about how exhausted she feels. Suddenly, her boyfriend pops out from behind a box, complaining that her stream went on for too long. He questions whether they need to keep their relationship a secret, and Yui apologizes, explaining that if her viewers found out she had a boyfriend, they might not donate as many balloons, which would mean less money for nice things. She then pulls out a wallet that Daniel had politely turned down and hands it to her boyfriend, saying she bought it just for him. The architecture department reflects on their first loves, with Jace encouraging Woong to stay positive, assuring him that he will move on soon. Vasco shares his own experience, recalling how he was really hung up on his first crush, even bringing her milk every day. Vasco explains that your first love can cloud your judgment, and when the girl you like smiles at you, it changes everything in your brain. The scene shifts to Yui and Daniel, who are hanging out as usual. Daniel asks Yui her opinion on overweight people, and she responds that she sees everyone as just people, so it doesn't bother her. He thinks to himself that Yui stands out from other girls. Yui then glares at Zoe. Meanwhile, Duke has been streaming for a while, but struggles to attract viewers due to his appearance. Jiho suggests inviting Daniel to join the stream since his presence usually boosts Duke's viewership significantly. However, Duke insists he doesn't want to rely on Daniel anymore. He wants to succeed on his own. Back with Yui, she frowns as she checks the leaderboards, noticing Zoe's profile gaining popularity. She thinks to herself that Zoe is catching up and even copying her catchphrases. Determined, Yui starts her own stream, trying to be even cuter. Balloons keep pouring in, and Yui reflects that attractive girls always seem to have an advantage. If you're good-looking, money just comes your way. Duke is only streaming to 2 viewers, and neither of them are very nice. Just then, Daniel enters and asks what he's up to. He notices Duke is live and suggests they perform the festival song together. Duke agrees, saying, "Sure, come join me." Meanwhile, 3 people browsing Paprika stumble upon Duke's stream. The moment they see Daniel, they become instantly interested and start sending balloons. We then cut to a phone call between 2 mysterious individuals, with one urging the other to log on to Paprika TV right away. In the next scene, Lala discovers Duke's broadcast featuring Daniel. She feels it's fate that she found him again. To grab Daniel's attention, she sends an impressive 1,000 balloons, but soon after, another viewer starts sending even more. Determined not to be outdone, she decides to send 3,000 balloons. She laughs to herself, confident she can win this gifting war thanks to her generous monthly allowance. As night falls, we see Lala sitting in her chair, gazing up. She spent all her allowance and still came up short. Meanwhile, Jay is in his room, grinning at his laptop. The secret gifter from the stream has finally been uncovered. Duke and Daniel wrap up the stream, and their total earnings hit $2,000. They can't believe their eyes at the sight of that much cash. Next, we see Daniel at his cashier job. He scans a beer bottle, the customer pays, and leaves. He reflects on the stream and realizes it made as much as his entire monthly paycheck from working the night shift. Daniel starts to think about what to do with the $1,000 he earned from the stream. He decides he should buy a gift for his mom first, and then he can use the rest for Yui. Just as he's about to figure out what to get her, Yui walks into the convenience store with a guy. Daniel tells himself that the guy must be her brother, but just then, Yui grabs a box of balloons that are definitely not for kids. Daniel is puzzled about why she would buy something so mature with family around. Their eyes lock, and Yui asks him what he's staring at, saying he's annoying her. In the end, they choose not to buy the balloons. But as they leave, the so-called brother tells Daniel to keep his eyes to himself, knowing exactly what Daniel is thinking. Yui looks down at him with a judgmental glare and says he makes her sick. Daniel is taken aback. He's never seen Yui act like this before and wonders if the person in front of him is really her. A guy tells Daniel to speak up, but Daniel just stays quiet. He's lost in thoughts about the nice and sweet Yui he knows from school, but doubts start creeping in about whether she's really genuine. Yui then calls Daniel a pervert. The guy insists Daniel say something while getting ready to slap him, but somehow, Daniel manages to dodge it. Both the guy and Yui are shocked by Daniel's quick move. The guy is baffled, wondering how Daniel avoided his punch, which he had been perfecting for a decade. He tries again, claiming he was just going easy on Daniel the first time. But right before he can hit him, a voice calls out from the store entrance. It's Zach. The guy demands to know who Zach thinks he is, and Yui explains that Zach is in her class. Zach notices that the guy is Yui's boyfriend and thinks he looks like a thug. He realizes he shouted and starts to question why he feels the need to defend Daniel. Zach thinks back to the first time he fought Daniel and admits he's unsure about the whole situation, but he feels he can't let the man hit Daniel because he owes him something. The boyfriend calls Zach arrogant and complains that kids today lack respect. Zach spots the wallet in the man's hand, glances at Yui with a smirk, and calls her bold. He explains that the wallet was actually intended for a student in their class, but that student turned down the gift. Yui accuses Zach of lying and insists they should leave, but her boyfriend is curious and wants to hear more. Zach shares that there's a handsome guy in their class who Yui often buys gifts for, but he doesn't like expensive things, so he usually turns them down. He adds that even his pants were a gift meant for this pretty boy. The boyfriend then asks Zach how he knows all this, and Zach replies that he sits next to the pretty boy, so he's witnessed everything firsthand. Yui accuses Zach of fabricating nonsense and insists he's just telling tales. But before she can finish her rant, a fist suddenly connects with her face, knocking her down. While she's on the ground, he kicks her, and Zach calls the guy a worthless piece of trash for treating his girlfriend that way. The guy asks Zach if he really wants to fight, and he challenges him to come closer so he can take him out. As the tension rises, Daniel considers calling the police. Now, let's switch scenes. We see a broadcast where Zoe is making a heart shape with their fingers, thanking viewers for all the balloon donations. A user named Gangnam Landlord starts sending in a ton of balloons. Zoe steps up her performance, thinking that to outdo Yui, she needs even more balloons. She expresses her gratitude to Gangnam for the support. We then see a hand on a mouse, and the person quietly says it's a pleasure. Finally, we discover who Gangnam really is. He tells himself that he's down to his last 60 bucks. He figures he can only afford 1 cup of ramen for tomorrow since he has to use the rest for balloons for Zoe. Zoe asks Gangnam what his job is, thinking he has a lot of cash. In truth, he's just a laborer, but he types in the chat that he runs several companies. He grumbles that he could have been a millionaire if it weren't for his dad being disabled. His father quietly mentions that he's hungry, but Gangnam doesn't pay attention. Then, someone in the stream starts donating more balloons, so Gangnam keeps splurging on balloons, and Zoe thanks him for the 2,000 balloons. Zoe strikes a cute pose and says she wants to marry him for all the money he's given her. Gangnam gazes at his monitor and replies, "I love you," back to her. The camera zooms out, revealing the messy state of his room, while his father weakly mutters that he's still hungry, but Gangnam continues to ignore him. We're back at the convenience store, and the boyfriend motions for Zach to come closer. He assures Zach that he won't hit him, but as soon as Zach steps forward, the boyfriend throws a quick right jab. Zach doesn't flinch, and the man takes a step back, feeling embarrassed at his attempt. The boyfriend taunts him, asking if he's scared, but before Zach can respond, he goes for another punch. This time, Zach doesn't even try to block. He just dodges it effortlessly and stares at the boyfriend with a blank expression. He turns to Yui and asks if she's close with Mira, to which she replies that they don't talk much. "Good," he says. "You didn't see me here today." The boyfriend then attempts his big move, but before he can even react, Zach lands a solid hit right on his face. He stands over the boyfriend and asks if getting punched hurts. The boyfriend gets back up and tries again, but Zach just keeps hitting him, again and again. Daniel watches in awe at Zach's speed, wondering how he managed to dodge those punches in his new body. He notices Zach using a different punching technique, shifting his weight from one leg to the other as his arm swings out from the side. He twists his arm at a right angle and slams it into the side of the boyfriend's face, sending him crashing to the ground. As the guy lies there, groaning in pain, Zach steps in and tells him he needs to learn to respect women. No matter how they behave, hitting a girl is never okay, Zach insists. He then turns to Yui and asks her not to mention anything to Mira about what just happened. As he walks out, he glances at Daniel and tells him he doesn't owe him anything. Meanwhile, Gangnam realizes he has spent all the money from his father's disability pension. He can't buy Zoe any more balloons now, since she hasn't mentioned him in her stream lately. He starts to feel like she has betrayed his feelings for her, as he thought that they loved each other. He nervously chews on his nail, feeling a mix of anger and determination as he declares that he will never forgive her. To get back at her, he needs to track down her whereabouts. Just before Zoe ends her live stream, Gangnam captures a screenshot, noticing a sign with some words in the background. He begins to investigate every possible location one by one until he finally discovers the right spot. His cheeks flush as he imagines meeting his beloved Zoe and all the fun they could have together. After all, he reminds himself he is Zoe's husband. Meanwhile, we see Zoe walking home from school with her backpack slung over her shoulder. She thinks about how she'll soon surpass Yui in viewers if she keeps up with her broadcasts. She's excited to show Daniel all the money she's made from streaming on Paprika TV. In the next scene, Gangnam is lurking in an alley, wearing a truly frightening expression. Sleep tight tonight.